Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru 470. Today we're going to take a look at Neue Heimat. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I probably am not. This is a pure auction game from Germany. Now, I had this sent to me from Game Surplus. They often get this game in stock, and I've been kind of waiting for this game to come back around, and they were kind enough to send it to me for review. I saw Alex Tuttle, a board game blogger who also does reviews on YouTube, first talk about it, I think it was a couple of years ago now, and I really was like, oh, that looks really cool. So it's a pure auction game, and it has this kind of cool 3D, I don't know if you can see, I'll show you more in a minute, these like 3D blocks and things. And the theme of it is you're kind of these, I think, you're kind of these dastardly characters, and you're manipulating kind of the real estate market of this town. You've got kind of like three little neighborhoods that you're auctioning off plots of land, and maybe you're kind of going vertical as well with that area. And there's some other like special cubes you can use to change the landscape or discard cubes possibly. But it's pure auction. It's very, very nasty, but I'm gonna tell you kind of up front, I love the game. Not everybody's like the game because it is very nasty, but let's talk about the mechanics of the game, and then I'll tell you why I like it so much. So first, let's just take a look at the box here. There's not really much to it. It's got this kind of slip case type of thing here, and it's in sort of a shoebox here. So I don't know if these folks make this by hand or what. I know the game's been out for about 10 years and still seeing print runs. I don't know, probably not very big print runs, but it's definitely still out. You get a nice board here. You can see here this main street, and then you have these three rows, these three neighborhoods. And to start the game, you see this river here, and that shows the limit of each of the neighborhoods. Now you can increase it, so you do go beyond the river, but to start the game, the only area you're really concerned about is these 12 squares right here. Now you also are going to get a bag of these different cubes here, and they're almost like D6s, but they're not. They only have the pips on one side. And so let me set these out next to the board, and then we can talk about these. So before each game, you're going to take out and put 3 rows of 8 of these cubes here, and so you will have some bags, cubes left over. You won't use those for this game. And one of the things that you're going to be doing in the game is auctioning off these cubes and then placing them out onto the boards in the neighborhoods here. Now, the only cubes that are available to auction off are the ones on the end. So these 3 here, and then these 3 here. Once, let's say we auction off this one and it comes on the board, then now this one is available. So only the thing at the end of each of the rows is available. So you're going to auction those off. You may also auction off some of these special items. I'll talk more about these in a minute, but you've got 3 sort of special cubes and then this little pawn here who is the mayor. And next you might actually auction off some of these roof tiles here. So these come in the bag, and there's a couple of ways to play with this, but you can see some of these will have values, some of these are actually blank. Some various variants that are sanctioned, by the designers online and how you treat the roof tiles. But the interesting thing about when you auction off a roof, you say, I'm going to auction off a roof tile, and then you're going to go and get a tile randomly without knowing quite exactly what the value of it is going to be. And the last sort of component note, you have this money here, and each player is going to start off with 12 million of these euros in their hand to start the game. And then you're going to go from there. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick something to auction off. So let's just start simply with one of these. Let's say I choose this, and then everybody else is going to make a bid going around the table to my left. So Billy over there, maybe he bids 1, Frankie passes, Joey says 2, and then it's back to me. So at this point, I have an option to either take Joey's 2, Joey will pay me his $2, and then he will get to place this on the board, or I pay Joey the $2 and then I get to place it on the board. So it's a very interesting kind of once around style auction where you're kind of hoping to get some money out of folks or hope they don't bid too much, and then then you really want to place it, so you've got to pay the high bidder a bunch of money. So what you're going to do with whoever wins this is you're going to place it on one of these spaces. And so you kind of start from here and then work your way this way. And remember, you are limited by the river here. So the only interesting thing to note about the spots on the board here is anything with a white fence is considered a housing neighborhood. So this can only be 1 story tall. So we cannot place any more cubes on top of that. However, let's say on a future turn, somebody had won this one and that's a 6. We can stack cubes. This can become kind of a high raise. So the rule for that is let's say we go down a couple of turns and then this purple 3 is auctioned off. Well, that now can go on top of anything lower than it, as long as it's not in one of these kind of special neighborhoods here with the white fence. So let's say I won this, and then I will put that on top of there because the cube underneath it is lower. And then of course, if you put the 1 on top, then nothing else can go on top of that because there's nothing lower than a 1. Now, if you auction off a roof, then you're going to place the roof on top of one of these different structures here. It doesn't have to be a 1. You can short circuit this one earlier, but if you win this and then place it on top of that, then that cannot grow any further. But why are you auctioning all this stuff off? Well, here is a very, 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 very interesting mechanic. And let's say back to our first auction. I auction off the white block. Let's say I win it, I pay whoever, let's say $3, and I go to place it. Since this is the first white block that is placed in the game, I'm going to get the white cube here and keep this in front of me. And this is going to let players know that if a building scores and the topmost brick is white, I will get the points for that. Or I might actually lose the points because it's very, very possible to actually get negative points. And then we move along, and let's say here the first blue cube comes out, Billy places that out, then he gets the blue cube in front of him, and then that lets everybody know, okay, Billy wants all of the blue cubes to score. Now, how do these things score? Well, the game is going to end a number of different ways, but one of the ways that it will end is when you fill up a row, two rows of these neighborhoods. So let's just put some out here, for example, like this, and then maybe 2 here, like that. That's kind of an odd color shape, but we'll go with it. Now, a neighborhood or row is completed once all the spaces are filled and you've got roofs on all of those various tiles. So moving along here, let's say I had on this future turn auction for this 4 and I won it, and then I place it there. Now at this time, there are 2 completed neighborhoods here, 2 rows. This bottom row here is not finished. So the game will immediately end, and then we're going to score all the completed rows for positive points. So if you were the white player in this case, then anything that has the topmost brick being white would score these points. I would get 5 points for this. You can see 1 for the roof and 4 for that. I would get 9 for this, for the 6 and the 3, and so on. Now, if somebody had come along, of course, and let's say, I don't know, the dastardly purple player had put a cube on there, that's now a purple building. So you might be like, oh, cool, I'm going to put out the 6s if I'm the white player. Well, that's an invitation to have somebody place a brick on top of you. Because at this point, purple's going to score this. So you're going to get 3 plus 1, which is 4, plus the 6. So he is going to score all of the points in that stack. So all these points here are going to score positive. Anybody here that has a building in their color, where the topmost brick is their color, is going to score negative points. So in this place, yellow's screwed. Yellow's going to get -6 and then -3 for a total of -9. So that's how the game is going to end. Now the game can also end once you go through 12 of the roof tiles. Once 12 of those come out, the game will end. If you auction off all of these bricks, the game will also end. You might say to yourself, well, there's not enough room for all these bricks. You have to stack very high buildings to squeeze them all in this area. Well, that's where some of these special blocks come in. Now you can see there are little sort of gashes on these bricks. So this one has 2. This one here has 3. You can see on the different ends there, the 3 gashes, and this other one here has 1. I can put one of these up for auction, and I can say, okay, this is up for auction, this is the 1. Now whoever wins this, they can discard this one if they want. These special bricks here you can just discard if you win them. But you can also see this will allow you to increase one of these rows by 1 or decrease it by 1. So maybe I'm the yellow player and I look and see, okay, these rows are really close to being completed. I'm going to try to hose them up. So I'm going to take this one here. This one shows the 3 gashes. This will increase or decrease by 3. So if I win this, I pay whoever, then I'm going to increase this row, let's say, by 3. So 1, 2, 3, and I'll put that there. And that means now instead of having to get it to the river, these folks here have to build all the way out here for this to be considered completed. Now you can go the opposite direction even, and even on the same row where you already put a brick, maybe I'm the green player here, and I say, okay, we need to get rid of that. So I'm going to shrink that back 2. So I win this, and then we're going to move 2. So you just go ahead and stack that, move that 2. Now we only have to go 1 extra spot. So you can increase and decrease with these bricks. Now you can't, of course, let's say we auctioned off this 3 or here, and then we said we're going to decrease it 3. Well, you can't go below where there's already been some construction. Okay, and then there's also this blank one. There's no slits or gashes on this. This allows you to discard a already placed special cube here. So you can maybe have this one out here, and then I'm going to discard this as sort of the cancellation cube. I win this, I don't like that, I get rid of it, and then I'll reset the distance back to, you know, whatever it might be. The last thing here is the mayor, and the mayor you can auction off. The mayor you can also discard if you win it, and you put the mayor on the street here in front of one of these columns or these rows, and that's going to score double, and also double negative. So if it's here at the end of the game, then yellow is really going to get hammered in the negative point department. Now the other thing you can do on your turn, everybody, like I said, starts with 12 bucks. You can take, before you put up something to auction, you can take $1 here and just kind of tuck it under the table, you know, kind of right in front of where you're sitting, and squirrel away or sort of embezzle $1 or $1 million. And so what's going to happen is at the end of the game, we're going to score all this, and then everybody's going to take the amount of money they embezzled throughout the game and add that. These are all positive points. And I've seen games where everybody's like really close to 0 or negative points, and then the deciding factor, of course, is the amount of money you embezzle. But it's tricky to do that because you want to keep money because the bidding does get pretty tight. So just squirreling away $1, at least at the beginning of the game, and kind of depending on how players play too, that can be a very tight decision to do that. Now I should say the game does not come with English rules. There are some nice rules that I printed off on Board Game Geek. And the other thing I can think to mention is it is suggested that you actually play this maybe in kind of a 3-game format. And then you can sort of carry over money, or there's a few different ways to play it, but you could carry money over, or just play that the first person to win 2 games will automatically win. If nobody wins 2 games inside of a 3-game space, then you take all the points up and add it. There's a few ways to do that. The other only thing to mention are the variants regarding the roofs. The rules, I believe, is written tell you that if you draw one of these blank roofs, you discard it and basically lose your turn, which feels a little bit random. I can see why some folks might like that. But the other thing you can do, you can just remove all the blank ones, or you could randomly remove 5 and just have the blank ones be worth 0 points, which is how we play. We just play until there's 12 roofs out, and if you get a 0, then maybe you stick it on somebody else's or something like that. Or maybe you still want to close it off as a way of protecting, because you can see, hey, if I have a 6 here and I want to protect it because maybe there's no more white cubes in the middle, I don't care about slapping down 0 points. It's still going to be a completed building at that point. Okay, so that is Neue Heimat. I think that's pronounced right. I love this game. It's awesome. It's super brutal and cutthroat and nasty and vicious. It's very thinky. I will say that the folks I've played it with, not all of them have liked it. I would also say I think there's a lot of outside the box thinking from kind of your traditional sort of this is what I need to do to win kind of attitude. You have to be very nimble in this game. So let's talk about the first thing that you will do probably is auction off one of these different colored cubes there. Well, you put this out, and then you go ahead and you're the first one to put it out, and you get the little green cube that says you are responsible for green, and then everybody is going to try to tank green for the rest of the game. So you've got to be a little bit careful about that. And one thing to know is when you look at the 3 rows of these different colored cubes all in a line, well, there's a couple things to keep in mind that I've learned. You want to look at something where there's a lot of cubes of the color. So if there's not very many white cubes out there, it's going to be more difficult for somebody to try to score white. But as people place cubes out and they start to get the little cube that shows them that they're responsible for it, you don't really want to be left out of that. Now you can, I haven't seen anybody actually win doing this, but they got really close. You can not score any of the colors and just try to tank everybody and score a bunch of negative points. And meanwhile, you're embezzling money and you try to win that way because you're not getting hammered or hit by any of those. You try to extend it, you keep trying to, suck out cubes and put them out there, and so there's a lot of negative points, and you really try to see, okay, he's going to get a bunch of negative points here, so maybe I'll let him finish this one because it's not going to catch him up. There's a lot of kind of mind games and stuff like that going on. So it's sort of like a paradox, because you kind of want to get in early so that you can set up, get a lot of points, but you don't want to show your hand and let everybody tank you and then increase the size of your neighborhood. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with that group of blocks that you put out at the beginning is the color that's in the middle is, depending on how players play now, is likely to end up being negative points. The ones that are out early seem to be more likely to be actually score positive because they're out early. They might be in the wrong row, but you've got them out, and maybe you and the green player are kind of in the same row together. So now you want, you're both like, yeah, let's score this row. Let's make it a positive row. We're, sort of a temporary partnership. But those other ones that come out can just be kind of tossed into that third row and auctioned off like, yeah, I'm going to auction off this white 6. There's nowhere to put it now other than that catastrophe of a row there that nobody wants to win because it's 3, squares longer. And you're like, that's my color. That's going to be negative points for me because it's the one in the middle. It's the one at the end of the game. Because that's when people start tanking each other, really. You're like, oh yeah, we're a team, we want this top row to score. And then I'm like, okay, you're gonna score more points than me, so I'm gonna throw your cube in the bottom row, and you're gonna get tanked. So you gotta be careful though. So those ones in the middle are sort of a double-edged sword. If they're low numbers, you can maybe put them on top of others if they aren't already covered, if there's even a spot to do it. I like the sort of randomness of the rooftops. That's a nice little random flavor. Everything isn't so calculable where you can just pick and choose and just be super deductive that way. I like that little bit of chance there, like I could pull, a 0 roof or a 6 roof or whatever, but you can still kind of play nimbly to your benefit. And then talking about the special cubes and the mayor, that's where you really get into Tank City. Is you throw the mayor down on the doubler of the the negative row. That's going to really hammer a lot of people, and that might be somebody that does that strategy to to embezzle a bunch of money and not really score any points on the board. There is some strategy for sure to auctioning off the right thing at the right time, because you want to auction something off. Or like, okay, Billy and Frankie are going to try to fight over this, and so they're going to pay me a lot of money, and you want to try to sort of coast along a little bit at the beginning, I think, kind of see how the board's forming, and then at that point have a lot of money to pull out of people, and then also to spend. So it's a cool game. It takes about a half hour, 45 minutes with 5 players, I'd say, and it takes a play or two to kind of get in there and get your dunk in the tank, to kind of see this sort of like, oh, I'm cruising along, I'm gonna get a bunch of points for my green things. Well, no, you're gonna be all negative points. You have to kind of let that happen to you, at least for me, to kind of get the idea of like a sense for when the timing is gonna be right to auction off certain things and when to get in on, certain things. So I really enjoy this game. It's kind of, I think it's definitely a niche audience that's gonna like it if you liked auction games at all in the past. Like I said, though, definitely, I pestered Velma there at Game Surplus for this one, and she was kind enough to send it to me, and I was pretty sure I'd like it based on Alex's review. I was like, that sounds pretty brutal. I think I like that. So I would definitely recommend this game. She does get it in stock if you're over here in the States. I think if you're overseas there in Europe, I think it's readily available because they've been keeping it in print now for about 10 years. But definitely take a look at it. It's got a nice, visual, quality, everything. You can see that there, the nice 3-dimensional aspect. And it's kind of thematic, I gotta be honest with you, because you kind of feel like somebody just kind of taking advantage of, this little town. They're trying to develop, some infrastructure, and you're just trying to, make a buck off it. And it has that real feel to it. And is that whole thing like just embezzling $1, and that's also a real good decision point is, okay, I'm going to lose $1. Yeah. But then you get outbid by $1 and you're like, well, I then I had to bid a bunch and now I don't have any money left and I shouldn't have embezzled all that money, So there's some interesting, kind of moments there. So I definitely track this one down and take a look at it if you like this kind of style of game. I think it's a funny game too, is kind of the other thing, is you have these moments where somebody just like loses their shorts, and it's just that transition into that degree of like, it's almost like a debauchery kind of thing, is pretty funny. So also, you know, I wouldn't necessarily shy away from this kind of game if you're not really into this stuff, but this might be a one that is kind of funny if you can kind of come at it with that kind of mindset. Okay, thanks.